Hello designers and welcome back to another Affinity version 3 tutorial. This time we're going to be concentrating on Canva AI. We'll be covering Object Selection Tool, Generate Image, Generative Expand Tool, Generative Fill Tool, Generative Edit Tool, Portrait Blur Tool, Portrait Light Tool, Colourise Tool, Super Resolution Tool, Remove Background Tool, Select Sample Depth Tool, and more. Let's go. Okay, so this tutorial is all about Canva AI Studio in Affinity version 3. And Affinity has many different studios and I've made tutorials on a lot of them. So Vector Studio, Pixel Studio, Layout Studio, and you can even make your own studios, and there's even more hidden ones inside there. But today it's all about Canva AI. So this studio is useful if you want to either generate, edit, or enhance images using the power of AI and machine learning. And when I say generate image, I mean you can generate a pixel, raster-based image, or you can generate a vector image, which is pretty cool. You can also edit them and enhance them using all the tools provided, which we'll be going through. A little test I did here, there's a picture of me, and I prompted the AI to turn me into a cyborg, and it turned me into a weird-looking Sheldon, which is really creepy. And then I prompted it to make me look like a superhero in an illustration style, and this is the result. So one important point to note is that Affinity is completely free and they've said it's going to be free forever. But to make the most of Canva AI Studio, you will need a Canva subscription. So a pro subscription is £13 a month currently in the UK. And I just want you to take note of that little crown there because we'll be seeing it later. So over on canva.com, you can see the plans and pricing. And remember, I'm only telling you this in regards to Canva AI Studio. If you don't use those AI tools, remember Affinity is completely free. So £13 a month per person. And if we switch over to yearly, it's £100 a month. That's in the UK, of course. And if we scroll down, you can see you get all this other Canva stuff and it says Affinity with AI. And over on the free version here, you can see it says Affinity and there's no AI there. And if you're into education, you can see a lot of it's free. So an important step before we launch into using the tools is that we need to download some machine learning models, and that all happens on device. We need to download those to make some of the tools work. So for instance, this one over here, Object Selection Tool, that uses machine learning. So how you get them is go to App Settings, click on that, and you go to Machine Learning Models. There's a little bit of blurb about it there. So you can see segmentation. It says Object Selection Tool. That's the one I just showed you. You can just click Download here. And this one doesn't require a Canva subscription, so don't worry about that. Underneath here, anything with a crown, remember I showed you the crown earlier, anything with a crown requires that Canva subscription. So you just go ahead and download them all and you're ready to go. Okay, we are well and truly ready to get started. So I am in Canva AI Studio. I've set up a document. If you're following along with me, it's 1920 by 1080 pixels. It's always the same in my tutorials. So looking at the UI, making sense of it, all of our tools are on the left-hand side. There's not that many of them, but we'll go through one by one. Over on the right-hand side in our studio, we have Generate Image, and underneath there we have Layers. So anything we create on this canvas in front of us will appear in the Layers panel. So the first tool we'll use is Generate Image. Just up here, it says Generation Type, Image or Vector. I'll leave it on Image. And right in here, we type a prompt. This is where we're going to tell the AI what we want it to create. So I'll just start off by typing a hero in a cape with a burning city in the background. And before I click on anything, I just want you to note, you see down here it says automatically enhance prompt. So if you're not very good at typing out your prompt, you can get AI to kind of help you enhance that prompt a little bit. You can turn it on or off, but I will leave it on. And another thing I'll show you at this point, you see these three little dots? I'll click on it and we can choose the style. And there's many in here. Right now it's on stock photo. So I'll go up to cinematic. And also aspect ratio. Do you want it to be like a square? Do you want it to be landscape or portrait? So I'll click on landscape and image count. How many do you want it to produce? It's on 4 right now, so I'll just leave it on 4. And also, do you want it to generate an ultra HD generation? I'm going to leave that off for now. So we're ready to get started and just click on generate. So I'll click on it now. So I'm not going to skip this one just so you can see how long it takes. And when it's generating this image, I can't actually do anything else in Affinity. If I have another tab open, I can't do anything. So I just have to watch this loading, and sometimes it can be really time consuming, generation after generation. Okay, there we go, it's ready. That is pretty cool. So you can see here, this panel opens and that's our variations. So if I click on it, I can cycle through the different variations. That's cool, isn't it? And they're all kind of the same style, aren't they? But I thought the guy was going to be facing me, but I can always go in and change my prompt so that you can see this hero. And if you see one that you really like, let's say this one, for instance, if you want it to be really high resolution, you just click on Super Resolve. Remember what I told you about that crown? So that crown will be part of the Canva subscription. I'm not going to click it. So of course I started off with a 1920 by 1080 pixel document. You can see down there in transform. So that's the size of this image here. So if I tapped on super resolution, it would increase in size and quality. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and delete that generation, and we'll head back up to generate image, and we'll switch over to vector, and I'll just type something simple here like create a happy dog, and I'll just go ahead and click generate, and I'll skip this one so you don't have to wait. And it's finished generating, so we can go ahead and zoom in, and you can see it's not pixelating at all because it's all made of vector. If I double tap here, I can move around the elements. You can see there's a few bits that are broken up. And if I go over to the layers panel here, if I just scroll up, you can see it was just in a group. And when I click on the group, it's got all the little parts inside of it. And there seems to be a lot of little parts there. It has done a pretty good job here, but it's a little bit messy in the layers. Like, is that really needed? That little bit? You know, I could just delete it and it makes no difference. So let me just put the eye back. Although it did a good job, the cleanup process might take a little while. So anything that you have generated, you can go ahead and click on your generation history, and you can see everything that you generated there. And you can right click here and delete or open as new document. So this dog here, I don't really want him, so I'll just press delete on that one. And it's gone, and I'll just delete it from here as well. Look how many layers there are in there. Wow. So it's not perfect. Get used to it being a little bit fractured, a little bit broken. I'm sure it will get better with time, but away with you. Okay, in this section, we're going to generate another image, but this time we're going to add a reference image to influence the output. So I have this design in front of me. It's all made out of curves, so it's all vector, and we're going to use this image here. So I'm just going to go up to generation type. I'm going to paste in my prompt, pre-made it, create a stylish coat on a white background. And I'm going to go down and turn off the enhance prompt. And I'll just check, yep, I have a square there for the aspect ratio, 2 images, and stock photo, okay? So here's the trick. You have to tap on add reference, this icon here, and this panel appears and it says from none. I'm going to choose document, okay? And now you can see the document is showing up here. And image guidance. If I hover over this, we get 3 options. Character reference uses faces in the input image to influence the output. Content reference uses the shape and structure of a reference image to influence the output. And style reference references the aesthetics from the image to influence the output. That's the one we're going to go for. So I'm going to click on that, and hopefully it generates a coat in this kind of style. So I'm going to go over to generate and just tap it. And I'll skip this bit so you don't have to wait. And it's finished generating the image, and it's a little bit confusing because I have all of my layers in the background. So I'll just go ahead and delete those just so we can see the generated image. So it has actually created a coat. That's great. And it's used similar colors to what I had in my artwork, but I did tell it to place it on a white background and it hasn't done that. Either way, it looks pretty good. Also, it only gave me 1 image and I asked for 2. Over there, if you remember, image count 2, it didn't give me that. So it's a little bit hit or miss, but I have got a generated image. Right now, it's a pixel image, a raster-based image. If I wanted to vectorize this, remember, you can go over to the Vector Studio over there. I have a tutorial for that, so go and check out my YouTube channel and you can make it into a vector. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Okay, we're going to generate another image and we'll use the same document as our reference, but we'll just change it slightly. So we'll go to image guidance, and we'll go to content reference. And if I just hover over it, you'll see uses the shape and structure of a reference image to influence the output. So I'll just leave it on that, and I'll just type out here or paste aluminium. That's all I'm going to write. It's not going to be enhance the prompt, and I'm just going to tap it. Okay, the image is complete. We have 2 variations here, and you can see it does look like aluminium or aluminum, as they say in America. And if I just tap over to the other one, it follows the design pretty well. Not perfectly, but pretty well there. And of course, I probably should have used a different aspect ratio, because if we go over here, I chose the square one. I should have gone for landscape so it covers the whole screen, but that one worked pretty well. So you can see the differences between the different options in image guidance. Moving on. Okay, we're going to generate another image, this time of a man on a motorbike on the beach at sunset. So I'll just type in here generation type, and I've just pasted it in there. And this time we'll use the reference image of a person. So from, I'm going to choose image, is going to open up your computer's file system. I'm going to choose Man 2 and click Open. And we're going to go to Image Guidance, Character Reference. So it should use the face of the character here in the generated image. So I'll just go ahead and make sure it's on landscape, the aspect ratio, and stock photo is fine. So I'll just go ahead and click Generate. In fact, I will enhance the prompt. So I'll toggle that on and then press Generate. So it's finished generating the image. It's only given me one variation. I asked for two. The image is kind of similar, I guess, but look at that eye. That is scary. There are some kind of strange artifacts going on here. Look, the front break kind of overlapping the fingers, and he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fingers there, and that's not including the thumb. Yeah, so I hope it gets better with time because, I mean, that's pretty poor. Nobody will be able to use that. It's kind of almost funny, isn't it? But let's move on to the next one. In this section, I'm going to show you how to make a pixel selection of a subject in just one tap. So I've selected my layer, which is a photo, and I'm going to go up here to select subject, and I'll tap it. And it's going to automatically work out what the subject is. So you can see we have marching ants surrounding the subject. It knew that was the subject because it's just the biggest one in the frame, and you can see everything else is the background. So a pretty easy one. But you might want to use this if you want to apply adjustments to that subject. Maybe make it brighter or change the color, or maybe even change the color of the background. So I'm going to go down here to adjustments, and I'm going to tap it once. And just to make it clear what it's doing, I would just choose recolor. And I'll just drag this hue over to blue. And you can see this adjustment is only affecting the man here, the subject. And also note that in the layers panel, we have a new layer called recolor adjustment, and it's got a mask inside of it. So this is a non-destructive edit, which you can delete later on. Okay, I'll just press X. And another important point to note, if you want to deselect these marching ants, you just press Command D on the keyboard. But I won't do that yet because I want to apply an adjustment to the background and not the actual subject. So I'll press Command Z to go back a few steps. And from here, I want to invert the pixel selection. So it selects just the background and not the man. So I'll hold down on the keyboard, Shift, Command, and I, and that inverts the pixel selection. And now again, I can go down to my adjustments, and I'll just choose levels this time. And from here, I can just click and drag one of the sliders down. And you can see I've made the background a lot darker and the subject remains the same. And again, a new layer in the layers panel, which you can go ahead and delete. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go back a few steps again. You can also just create a mask from this. So go down and tap on mask layer. And you can see it's completely removed the background, but this is still non-destructive. So at this point, I'll press Command D to deselect those marching ants. And I can actually bring back the background just by going to my layers panel, clicking on mask and pressing delete. Moving on. In this section, I'm going to show you how to remove a background in just one tap. Very easy. So I have a picture of this man here. I'm going to go up to this icon, remove background, and just tap it once. And it will automatically work out what the background is and remove it. So it's finished and it's done a pretty good job, as you can see there. So that would save a lot of time. But one thing to note is it is a destructive edit. If you look there in the layers panel, it hasn't created a mask or anything. It's just one pixel layer. So the only way to go back on this is just to press Command Z on the keyboard. So we're going to remove the background again in one tap on this image, but I want you to see what happens. So I'm going to go up and tap it. Remove background. As you can see, it successfully removed the background, but check out the window. It's not completely transparent there. So if I head on over to the Vector Studio and just draw out like some kind of square so we can see what it's doing, and I'll just send that to the back using Command and left bracket key. As you can probably tell, the remove background feature is fairly smart. It knew not to remove the background on this window section here. If I just drag it out slightly, you can see it didn't do a great job over here, but either way, fairly impressive there. In this section, I'll show you how to use the object selection tool, and this one is very useful if you want to quickly make pixel selections of different objects in your image so that you can apply adjustments to it or filters to it, or even use generative fill to replace one of those objects. So over on the left-hand side, we'll just hover over it. It says select areas of pixel layers using machine learning. So I'll go ahead and tap on that. And before I go ahead and use it, just note that up in the context toolbar, there's different options. Okay. So right now, in regards to making this object selection, there's new, or there's add, there's subtract, and there's intersect. It says multi-part object is selected. So perhaps you're not just selecting one thing in the image, you're selecting multiple. you select that, and then you've got soft edges. And of course there we've got generative fill. So watch as I hover over different parts of the image, it automatically knows which part of the image is an object and which part isn't. So as I go in, I'll just zoom in here. I'm not tapping anywhere, I'm just hovering around. You can see it selected this whole kind of graphics tablet here. And as I go down and hover, it will just select this other part here. Or in fact, maybe I want to select the whole pen. I could just leave it here or just move it over there a little bit. So it just selects that center portion. Sometimes it's a little bit finicky. There we go. There. So I might want to just make a selection of that. So let's just go ahead and tap once here to make our object selection. So it's chosen it. And just like I did before, I can apply an adjustment layer to this. But before I do that, I can go over and perhaps select another object. So this plant pot here, I'll just tap once on there. And you see if I zoom in, it hasn't done the best job here. So I can just hover over this section and tap once again. And now we have two objects selected. So from here, I'll just apply an adjustment. So go down to your adjustments and I'll just click on levels to make it easy. And I'll just click and drag this down to make them both black. So you can see I've applied it just to those objects there. And you can use live filters as well, but that's just an example for you. So I'll just press delete on that. You can see now that I applied it, there actually is the levels adjustment layer that's been added there and it's masked it out. So I can click on that again and go ahead and apply that. And if I don't want it, I could just press delete up here and it gets rid of that layer. So right now I just want to deselect this object here. So I'll go up to subtract. I'll tap on that. I'll go back down here and you see it's kind of gone red now. I could just tap once and it's deselected it. There's a little bit down there that it didn't properly deselect. So I'll just see whether it gets rid of that. Yep, there we go. So we just have the plant pot left over here. So I'm going to go up to generative fill and see if I can change it to something else. So I'll click on generate fill or generative fill. And in here, I could just type in a can, and then I'll just click on apply. So it didn't actually generate an image of a can to replace this plant pot. There was a pop-up message that came up that says I'm basically not allowed to do that. And I have found that with this generative fill, it's hit or miss and it can be quite annoying. So I'll just leave it at that, but sometimes it works, okay? So over here, there's a few other options and I have covered all of these in my previous tutorial. So go and check that out. Moving on. In this section, I'm going to show you how to use the Generative Expand tool, and it's over on the left-hand side. It says increase the size of your composition using Canva AI. So normally when you crop into an image, you kind of get rid of parts of an image so you can concentrate on one part. And basically this kind of does the opposite. It generates more of the image outside of what you already have. So I'm going to select the layer. That's the image there. I'm going to go over and tap on it. And look, you can generate more than one image. You can generate like up to 8. I'll just put it on 2 and hopefully it does a good job. And from now I have to kind of uncrop. So I'm going to click and hold down to drag out. If you hold down Command, it scales kind of proportionately the other way. And I'll just go up here and do the same kind of vertically. In fact, I'll make it a little bit smaller. Just a little bit extra is all that I need. Okay, I'll click on expand. And it's completed its job, and look, it has actually generated more of the image outside of my original one, but if I go in, you can see it's a little bit pixelated there, isn't it? Not the best quality, but it all kind of seems to make sense. So I don't think that's very good quality, but you can go down here and click on Super Resolve, and it will increase the quality of that generated part of the image. It's actually given me another variation here, of course, so I'm just going to tap on that to see what that's done. So let's just see which one is better. I think I prefer the first one. So yeah, if I wanted, I could click on Super Resolve, increase the quality of it, and it's done. Just check in the layers panel here. You can see there's a new layer called generated image. So technically I could just delete that and have my image back to the way it was before. So anyway, that is the Generative Expand tool. In this section, I'll show you how to use the Generative Fill tool, and it's over on the left-hand side. Basically, you can add or replace objects in your composition using Canva AI. So I'm going to go ahead and select it, and this pop-up panel appears, and basically I want to add a cloud to this composition here. So before I go ahead and type anything, I'll just make my selection. So I'll just click and kind of select where I want the cloud to be, like there. And I'll just type in here, add a cloud, and then I'll click on apply. Image count is just 1. Okay, it's finished generating the cloud, and we'll just have a quick look at it. It's done a fairly good job. It's pretty low resolution, but if I want to up the resolution, I could just click this button here, Super Resolve, and it will increase the quality of it. And I'll also mention that actually I could just click on it and drag it around. It's literally just an overlay. So I'll just press Command Z to make it go back in place. Over in the layers panel, you can see we have a layer called Add a Cloud. That was my prompt. And if I click on that, we also have a mask in there as well. So technically you can erase part of that mask. So I will actually do that now because I can see like a definite line there, which is kind of ruining it a little bit. So I'll click on the mask layer here. Then I'll head up to Pixel Studio, click on that, and I'll go down to the paintbrush tool and I'll go over to color and I'll choose black. It's on black right now. So black conceals, white reveals. Okay. So remember I'm on the mask layer here. So as I hover over, you can see I can erase part of that image. Maybe I should go a little bit softer with the brush. There we go. I'll just make it a little bit softer and I can erase that kind of line that disturbs the image slightly. It makes it look like it's just been added on. So you see, I can actually make a fairly decent image with this. And if I feel like I've made a mistake, I can actually just paint it back in by switching over to white in the colors and painting back in that mask. Okay, moving on. Okay, let's use the generative fill once more. So I'm going to go ahead and select it. And I want a mini cat leaning on the cap. And I'll just draw where I want that to be. So I kind of want it to be around here somewhere. And then apply. Look at that. That's so funny. It actually looks like it's part of the cap. You can see the shadow on there as well. He's not exactly leaning against it, but he's more like poking his head around the corner. Anyway, that was fun. In this section, I'll show you how to use the Generative Edit tool. And it basically says, make global or local edits to any element in your composition using Canva AI. So if I go ahead and tap on it, we get the pop-up box again. And it even gives you like little prompts here. It says, make it winter or remove sofa, for example. But I just want to change the weather. So I'm going to say, make it snow. And just note, there's a couple of options underneath. One of them is automatic under transparency. You can preserve the transparency of your image. Let's say you're using a PNG. You can choose the right one for you there. And you have the option to protect child layers. Basically, if you have a group of layers clipped inside of another layer, this generative edit won't be applied to those child layers. But anyway, I just have a single JPEG, so let's go ahead and tap on it. And the AI has completed its job and it's made it snow. And it's done a fairly good job. It looks a little bit uniform, the snow around here. And it is a destructive edit, as you can see in the layers panel. I don't have my original image anymore, so the only way to go back is just to press Command Z. But from this point, you could add extra things into the scene. Perhaps you want a cat over there. You can use the Generative Fill tool. You can use the Generative Expand tool to increase the scene. Things that were never there. Okay, moving on. In this section, I'm going to use the Generative Edit tool again, but this time on one of my designs. Now, this is made of vector. As you can see, I can tap into it. There's loads of layers there. And inside I have some texture, which I've painted in using kind of pixel brushes. So this is a full group here. And you can see it's got some transparency to it. So I've got the group selected. I'm going to go over to Generative Edit tool, click on that. And I'll just say here, make it realistic. And this time, because I do have some transparency, I'm going to click on Preserve because I don't want it to get rid of any transparency. So I'm ready to click on Edit. Okay, it has actually made this flower look fairly realistic here. And same thing for the leaves in the background, but it's slightly messed up in terms of like, it's slightly off center, so I can see some kind of white background. So one of the things I could have probably done is to rasterize the layer first. In fact, let's try that. So I'll press Command Z to go back. I'll just right click. I'll go down to rasterize. Now that's just kind of a pixel layer, and I'll try the same thing again. Make it realistic. Okay, and I will just preserve the transparency there and click on edit. Okay, it's completed, and you can see it does look a little bit more realistic, but again, the same problem persists. So it's very hit or miss with this and quite time consuming because every time you make a generation, you cannot do anything else. So there we go, moving on. Using the Generative Edit tool one more time to see if it can redeem itself. I've got this isometric design here. It's all vector. There's like hundreds and hundreds of layers in here. And I've got it all packaged up nicely into kind of one layer there. So what I'm going to do is just head on over and I'm just going to type out make it hyper realistic. Okay, now let's hope for the best. Yes, that has actually worked pretty well. I'm quite happy with that. The resolution isn't great, but I can always increase that later on with the tool down here, which we'll use later, Super Resolution Tool. But it's cool to see it transform from a design I did, which is kind of everything was flat and just solid colors, to something that looks like this. So that's really cool. I like that. In this section, I'll show you how to use the portrait blur tool, and I'll use it on this generated image here. It's like a superhero lady. And on the left-hand side, you see create pleasing 3D depth of field effects using machine learning. So I'll tap on that. This box appears. Now this image does have a little bit of a blurry background anyway, but we'll try and see if we can add a little bit more depth to it. So I'll just up the radius a little bit here. And you can see it's kind of getting rid of those flyaway little strands of hair there, adding a little bit of depth there. And it kind of works pretty well. You can change the focal distance as well if you want. You can see it kind of going back and forth. Let me zoom in on that. Yeah, so it kind of knows which one is the background, which one is the foreground on here. And you can change the blur smoothness as well. And when you're ready, you can just click apply. So that's the portrait blur tool. In this section, I'll show you how to use the portrait lighting tool. Basically, you can add lights that weren't ever there, and it will react with whatever's in your image. So the subject is this superhero lady. It's generated in AI. So over on the left-hand side, there we go, light portrait images in 3D using machine learning. So I'll tap on that, and we have this pop-up box here with all the different settings. So just note right now, the type is point light. We actually have a spotlight as well, but I'll just leave everything as it is and just zoom in a little bit so you can see. So wherever I place this light, it will react with the image below. So you can kind of see as I'm moving it around here, it's reacting with the contours of the face. It's kind of worked that out. And same thing with the hair here. If I drag it and put it on top, it's as if there's a light up here reacting with her hair. So I'll just place it below again, and I'll just change some of the settings. So diffusion, I'll just drag that up and down, and specular. And you've got your ambience as well. So if I drag that down quite a lot, you can see how it's reacting with that hair. So it kind of knows what's on top and what's underneath. And yeah, I can have a lot of fun with this tool here. So let's change it into a spotlight. So this is the spotlight. It's actually quite big right now, so I can change the radius of this light. And you can see here this little dot. I can click on that and drag that over there. And I can also change the angle of the light as well. Maybe I want it to be kind of a mini spotlight that just affects that area there. And let's add one more. So I'll click on add. And we've got another light over here. In fact, maybe I'll just keep this as a point light, and I'll just place it kind of around here a little bit, and I'll up the ambience on that. So hopefully you can see where this would come in useful. Maybe if you haven't quite lit your scene very well, it might just save your image. Okay, moving on. In this section, I'll show you how to use the Colourise tool. And basically you can turn black and white pixel-based images into full color. So I have this image here. Remember, I used this earlier and it was actually full color, but I've turned it into black and white so we can test this tool out, see how well it does. So over on the left-hand side, Colourise tool, tap on that. We get this pop-up box that appears. It's already tried to work out the color, and I'd say it's done a fairly good job actually. The skin is a little bit more yellow than I was expecting, but we can change the temperature, so maybe I'll up that a little bit, and I'll just bring down the temperature ever so slightly there. And if I just zoom in, you can see this bit's a bit odd, this black plastic part of the sunglasses. It's a little bit red there, not sure why it did that, and the hat is, I guess, a little bit more blue than I was expecting given the rest of the scene. So overall, I think it's done a fairly good job. I would just click apply and I'm done. Okay, let's use the Colourise tool one more time. Remember what this image looked like earlier in the tutorial. So I'm just going to go ahead and tap Colourise, and there we go. This is the result. This one hasn't done a very good job. The hard drive over here was red, but it hasn't quite fully covered the full hard drive here. This was gray anyway. It's kind of showing through there, but then it goes to blue. So this one's a little bit messy, hit or miss. All right, let's move on. In this section, I'll be covering the super resolution tool, and I'll use it on this image here, which is only 720 pixels squared, and it's very pixelated and low quality, as you can see. So let's go ahead and use it on this. So over here, super resolution tool, increase the resolution of pixel layers using machine learning. So I'll tap on it and it's going to do its thing, and it's completed its job. And we have this before and after line here, which I can play around with. So this is what it looked like before, very pixelated. And if I swipe over, this is the after. I'd say it's done a pretty good job. It's ultra smooth in some places, and it's kind of messed up the watch there a little bit, but it was very pixelated and low quality before. So that could be fairly useful. You also have a few options here, so you can scale it up. It's 200% right now, it says. I haven't clicked apply yet. And you've also got options for initial downsample and also scale document to fit. I'll just leave it on that for now, and I'll just click on apply. And you can see it was 720 pixels before squared, now it's 1440 pixels. So it has actually increased the size of it, and from a distance, I guess you wouldn't know that I used that tool. Okay, moving on. In this section, I'll show you how to use the Select Sample Depth tool. And basically this one creates a pixel selection based on the depth of your image using machine learning. So we'll use it on this image here. Basically, it's going to work out what's in the foreground and what's in the background, and you can make your selection from there. So I'm going to go ahead and tap on it. And this panel appears here. So I can just tap on this and just drag it up. So there we go. Maybe I want it to go to here, and then I can click on the far away one and just drag it down so it touches the top of those hills over there. And once I'm ready, I can go ahead and click on apply. So we have made our pixel selection. If I just press Q on the keyboard, we can see where the mask is going to be, those red parts there. If I press Q again, it will go back to those marching ants. So from here, I can go ahead and apply an adjustment to it or anything else that I wish to do, maybe a live filter. So I'm going to go down from here and I'm going to click on adjustments and brightness and contrast. So from here, I could just click and drag this up. Maybe I just want this to be a little bit brighter, and maybe I'll up the contrast a little bit. And I'll just X out of that and it's done. If I want to deselect the pixel selection, I just press Command D on the keyboard, and you'd never really know that that was slightly darker. So in my opinion, that is a very useful tool. And you can see it's just added a brightness / contrast adjustment and a mask. So you can obviously get rid of that whenever you want. In this section, I'll show you how to create a depth map from your image. So I have this image of the city here, and before I go ahead and apply it, I'm going to make a duplicate of this. So I'll press Command J on the keyboard. That will create a duplicate. You can see in the layers panel, we now have another one. And I'm going to go up here and click on Create Depth Map. So I'll tap on it, and you see it kind of automatically creates this depth map, black being the distance and more white being the foreground, and anything gray is kind of, I guess, in between. So now that I have that on top, I can go ahead and use a blend mode. So I can change how that depth map reacts to the layer underneath, which is my original layer. I'm just hiding the blend mode layer right now. So I'll click on it. Right now it's on normal, and I'll just kind of cycle through so you can see the kind of effects that you can get. And personally, I like the screen option. See, there's lighten, and there's the screen one. So I like the screen on there, but I'll just cycle through the rest of them. And you can have a good play with this if you're creating a depth map to see what you can get. Perhaps there are more use cases for this depth map, but this is how I'd like to use it for this image at least. Okay, that's a wrap for this tutorial. If you liked it, let me know in the comments section. Give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and do that and check out the rest of my channel. I have many Affinity tutorials, vector, pixel, all of that. So catch you on the next one.